Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate for taking the time to join. Um, as you can see, the slideshow represents the free Cloud Connect promo that will be expiring March 31st. If you don't know, if you haven't heard about the details, feel free to reach out to JC's on the call. You'll also be moderating the chat. So if you have any questions or would like some more information in regards to the free Cloud Connect services, which ends March 31st, feel free to reach out to JC and he'll get you more information. So today we'll be focusing on ransomware protection. It's built in with Veeam and we'll learn how. I'll just bring the slideshow up front. Here we go. So myself, Ernesto Pellegrino, Data Protection Architect at Assurance IT, will be discussing ransomware protection. It's built in with Veeam Learn How, along with Brett Gerber, an Inside Systems Engineer at Veeam Software. Essentially, we should be taking anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes, really to showcase three main principles. Ransomware, the big picture. What is ransomware for those who haven't experienced it, and I don't wish it upon anyone. How to get prepared and what best practices are available really to get prepared to fight against ransomware. And lastly, Brett will drive us through a demo on how to activate the Assurance IT Cloud and start getting our data offsite. For those who don't know who we are, Assurance IT, a cloud-based offsite backup and disaster recovery partner. Technology of choice, Veeam. Why? Because of the solution sets, fast and secure backup to the cloud. New in 2019, extending archives to the cloud. We call it tape as a service. So for customers that have been looking for archive solutions, we do now offer tape as a service, the ability to move your data offsite to the cloud and use our tape as a service option where we can archive that data that's moved to the cloud to tape and for long-term retention or compliance needs. Affordable and efficient cloud-based disaster recovery. Again, cloud-based offsite backup and disaster recovery. And today, the main focus, safeguarding backup repositories from ransomware. Where are we located? We are located in Montreal in the state-of-the-art data center at 800 Square Victoria in downtown Montreal. 100% of our infrastructure is hosted at a secure facility in Canada. The data resides in Canada, and most importantly, it's managed by Canadian experts. So a little bit about ransomware, the big picture. What is ransomware? It's a type of malicious software which restricts access to computer and files on a computer until a ransom is paid out. Unfortunately, we went through this weekend, one of our customers who got hit with a ransomware attack. It hasn't been funny. It's been an experience where they've been working around the clock to get their environment up and running. Essentially, one of our customers, they do back up to the Assurance IT Cloud Connect data center, gives them the ability to have their data offsite, so they are protected. The customer decided to send only critical data to the Assurance IT Cloud and have tier one data sent to the cloud. Tier 2, tier 3 data the option was to keep it on site and back it up to tape. Essentially, the ransomware was able to encrypt the data on site and on tape. So they're going through this rigorous process of restoring through old tapes and through old archive units that they've had in the past. However, the tier 1 data that we were backing up to the Assurance IT Cloud Connect data center was restored to external drives and shipped off to them, where they're restoring it as we speak. So ransomware, it is real. The moral of the story, it is real, and we need to protect and get ready for it in case it does happen. So having that data, having a strategy where you ship your data to the cloud, yes, it is it's a nice to have. It's an important factor. It's an important aspect of protecting against ransomware. But the lesson learned out of all this for a lot of customers is how you need to drive through and test the whole experience. Meaning that if you do get connected with ransomware, what SLA can you realistically deliver to the customer or to your client, which is the business, in terms of being back up and running. So there is a cost, and again, these are the costs, the averages of what's going on in the industry, the average cost of downtime, and I can assure you that I'm not sure about the $80,000 mark, but they've been working around the clock this weekend, and they'll only know what the cost to their disaster will be within a week or two once they resurface. But there is a definite cost in terms of man hours, in terms of data loss, and restoration. So it can be catastrophic. So what can we do really to prepare ourselves? What can we do to be better prepared for ransomware attacks? So essentially, it comes down to 5 major factors. And today we're going to be concentrating on really ticket number 4 and 5. Backing up all information every day and back up all information to a secure offsite location. Those are what we're going to be concentrating on the webinar today, but it is critical to look at points 1, 2, and 3. Step 1, you have to have an update strategy. Are you updating your OSs? Are you updating your infrastructure on a regular basis? Are you updating your antivirus software on a regular basis? So there has to be some type of a strategy put in place in order to keep all software up to date. Step 2, performing threat analysis for your security team. Are we doing any type? So it's one thing to say that you have an antivirus running or you have something at a firewall level that's doing threat protection, but are we testing it? Testing it is key. So my recommendation is to work with your team internally, really to schedule 1 or 2 quarterly or bi-yearly tests in order really to go through a rigorous process so you can prevent this catastrophic event. 3, more importantly, where a lot of companies do not put emphasis on, and again, I encourage it, is really to train your staff on cybersecurity best practices. Not to open attachments, and really just information sessions to employees on virus outreaches and what the company can do to prevent it. I think it's critical, it's forgotten, and it must be something on top of your list of things to do in 2019. So again, the main focus, backing up your information every day, and backing your information to a secure offsite location. We're going to target on that in the next couple of slides. Everybody's heard it. I believe everyone's heard it, the master the 3-to-1 rule, right? What does that mean? 3 different copies of your data, 2 different medias, 1 which is off-site, 1 which is offline. And essentially, having experienced the ransomware attack this weekend with our customer, it's very important to look at the last box. No errors after recoverability verification. So do you test your restores? So essentially we run those backups, and it's the last thing on everyone's mind, right? We put in the schedule, we let it run, we get a check mark, it's backing up, but do we test it? Have we restored? Do we have a scenario? Do we have a task internally to restore on a weekly, quarterly, monthly basis? The time frame really depends on your criticality of your data, but essentially it has to be done. So look into it, really understand, do you have a 3-to-1 put in place? Is it something that you need to look at in 2019 and really to ensure you that you are protected from ransomware or any other attacks in your environment? Again, I'm driving through these slides. If you have any questions, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. JC is available. We'll be moderating those questions, and we'll go through a Q&A at the end of the webinar. So how do we get our data offsite? For those who are familiar with Veeam, Essentially, we schedule backup jobs, and those backup jobs meet our data retention needs, right? So, are we backing up with 7 restore points? Are we backing up with 15 restore points? That is something that is internal to every organization. Essentially, it's a matter of building a schedule that fits your needs, right, and your on-premise needs, and able to restore. So do your customers or your clients, which is the business, need to have data available up to 30 days before you go offsite and restore files, or is 7 days fine, and then we could archive everything else, right? So it really depends on your organization. Today, the main focus is the backup copy job. So once that schedule is in place and you're backing up to an on-site repository, you need to get that data offsite. You need to get that data offsite and offline. So how does Veeam do that? So essentially, there's an option in Veeam called backup copy. What it does is it runs simultaneously after every backup job, and it copies the backup job to an offsite Cloud Connect repository, which in this case is Assurance IT. And we'll drive you through the scenario here. This gives an ability for customers to move their data onto spinning disks offsite at Assurance IT, where in case of a ransomware attack, you can restore in a high capacity fashion. Be able to restore through the link, or be able to do an emergency restore, as we did this weekend with the customer, where you work with Assurance IT to copy your data on external drives and express ship it to your organization. In the next couple of slides, or in the demo, Brett will drive us through a real life demo where he'll be connecting to the Assurance IT Cloud Connect repository and backing up and restoring a VM. So we'll look at that in a couple of minutes. I'll drive through this. Again, before I hand it over to Brett, the major high level deliverable from this call is really being able to move your data offline and offsite. So offline storage is the single most effective ransomware resiliency technique. We encourage every organization to have this as part of their strategy, and we're going to demo that right now. So Brett, I will be handing it over to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brett Gerber, one of the systems engineers here at Veeam. So once you give me the rights, I'll be able to share out my screen and we'll be able to demo this.
There you go, Brett. You're the man.
Okay. So should be sharing out my screen. So what we first have to do once we're inside of Veeam is to first add in Assurance IT as your service provider. So that step is simply going into here under Backup Infrastructure, choose Add Service Provider, and then they will give you their DNS name to connect to, and then from there a set of credentials once they've created an account for you. After that, once we've connected, we will simply, or if you can see, we're connected right here, so we can just go through and hit properties. So we'll connect to Assurance IT. We have our set of credentials, and then after that, what this will do is it's going to unlock the resources that they've now allotted to you. So here we will now have our repository under backup repositories. We'll now have that as one of our cloud repositories here. So you'll see that selected right here, Cloud Repository SE. Then all that we have to do now is come under Home and create our backup copy job. So once you have your primary backup job created, we can go through and send that off to Assurance IT Cloud simply by going through, and we're going to set up our job here, which I actually already set up just a few minutes before we got on the call here today. So the process for that is basically going in here and giving your copy job a name, and then we're going to choose, our virtual machine data that we want to, our critical virtual machine data that we want to get offsite. After we've selected those objects, we're going to go in here, and now that cloud repository will now be available within here, as you see, Assurance IT, and then we're going to set up how many restore points that we want to keep. So minimal of 2, but you can of course extend that out to however many restore points that you need. And then on top of that, for long-term archiving, you can go in and set up your weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly full backups. So you're going to store full backups in the cloud, and then from there, once it's in their cloud, they will do their backup to tape service to get an offline copy of that to protect you against any ransomware. So set up however many weeklies, monthlies, quarterlies, and yearlies that you'd prefer to keep. And then from there, we'll just simply go next, direct, and then just choose how often you want this to run to the Assurance IT cloud. So I already just ran a job here actually not too long ago. So we just moved, it took about a half an hour to get our first full backup over. Not very long at all. And then basically, so we're right at the end of the job here before we kind of get it's just basically waiting on the new copy interval and saying over incrementals. So once that first full is over there, then all that we have to do is just send the changes, of course. And then outside of when we decide to build those full backups, we will do essentially what's a synthetic full at the target end. And then from there, Assurance IT will then go through and be able to, do the backup to tape to get that data offline. So outside of that, now when it comes down to a restore, all that we'd actually have to do is simply go through at the top now. If anyone doesn't know yet, Veeam just had a new update, so the interface might look a little bit different. We're on 9.5 update 4. So a little bit new changes to the graphical interface here. So we're just going to go through here at the top. We're going to do restore. And this should look all familiar here. So we're going to do a restore for either an instant or an entire VM restore, or if you just need to restore specific files. Basically just go through the prompts just like you normally would for anyone that's familiar with Veeam. And then we can just go through, choose your destination. So let's say like an entire VM recovery. You'll choose your virtual machines. We can choose from backup. And then we'll simply choose our machine that we want to restore. We'll hit next. And then you can either restore to the original location, thus overwriting the original and replacing it with the backup, or you can restore to a different location and specify different settings as well. Outside of that, once you're done with this, you'll just put next, document your reasoning if you prefer, and then you'll hit finish. Unfortunately, I am in a lab environment that they've kind of restricted on my end here, so I can't go through and initiate the restore, but just wanted to, that's pretty much all that you'd have to do in a disaster scenario where you need to restore your data.
Brett, this is Ernesto. I just want to add a little comment that the restore is done at the customer side, right? And not at the Cloud Connect partner side. So this is all managed from the customer Veeam Backup and Replication Console. So you'll be able to copy that data over to the cloud and restore that data if need be.
That is correct. So you'd copy your data out to the cloud, and then when you are ready to restore that back on-prem, you're just going to simply go through the restore prompt, restore wizard, choose the items that you wish to restore, and then hit next and finish, and then we're going to initiate the restore back on-prem. That's correct.
Excellent.
So other than that, it's a very straightforward setup. You just basically create your backup copy job. And then once you have that data out there archived, you'll now have access to your data that's sent out to the cloud. And then essentially, anything that you need to retain, if, of course, having a cloud backup is great. But if you need to restore anything from the cloud, or from tape, you would reach out to Assurance IT where they will have your data available and pull the data that you need to recover.
That's a good point, right? So yeah, I think that's a great point. So in this scenario, if your Veeam environment is up and running in the event of a ransomware attack, you'd be able to restore from using the network link and restore back to your infrastructure. In certain cases, the Veeam servers are not available or have to be rebuilt. Well, there's an an emergency option where we would copy your data either from tape or from the Cloud Connect repository to an external disk and express ship it to the customer. That's a great point. Excellent, Brett.
Is there any questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, that's it. I was just going to say if there's any questions or anything in the chat that I'd be more than happy to go into a little bit more detail and answer. I'd be more than happy to do so as well.
At this point, I don't see any questions in the chat. It is a straightforward process, and I hope you can appreciate how straightforward it is. It's as simple as adding the service provider as Brett demonstrated, creating a backup copy job, and be able to test restore ad hoc whenever you need to. So Brett, if you're done with the demo, I'll go back to the PowerPoint slide.
Absolutely.
Okay, so as promised, we kept it within 25-30 minutes. Essentially, the high level points we want to retain is be able to move that data to an offsite location, which we just demoed where the Cloud Connect repository is available and built into the Veeam Backup Replication Console. Another high level point is the limited time offer. For those, I see there are certain attendees that are attending the webinar that are customers and have taken advantage of the $1,000 in free cloud services. For those who haven't, it is available as of March 31st, 2019. So all we need to do is there's a couple of easy steps. Go ahead and register on the assuranceit.ca site. Veeam will provide you a promo code. Once you have that promo code, go ahead and forward it off to info@assuranceit or JC for those who know John Charles, and we get you registered. You have 4 months to use it once it's activated. Again, I appreciate and I thank everyone for taking the time to join the webinar today. If there are any further questions, feel free to reach out to myself or the team, and look forward to working with you to help you protect against ransomware in 2019. Thank you.